Early in the morning, an earthquake strikes the nature reserve. Director Yoel Russo rushes to his son's room and manages to carry young Noam outside just in time. The tremor subsides quickly, but it leaves behind an eerie discovery: 3 human skeletons unearthed from the ground. Detectives Chava and Gabriel are called in to investigate. Meanwhile, Noam asks his father for photos of his mother, the woman he never knew, who died the day he was born. Yoel promises to bring the photos to school himself, but a call from the authorities pulls him away before he can fulfill his promise. That same morning, the city prison sustains damage from the quake. Among the inmates is Abigail, who regains consciousness in a smoke-filled cell. She stumbles upon a trapped guard and chooses to help her escape. Elsewhere, Yoel arrives at the excavation site but is blocked by police tape. Detective Chava spots him and instantly recognizes the man who lost his wife in a tragic accident 9 years ago. In another part of town, mentalist Nico holds a public session. A young woman named Karen steps up from the audience. As Nico reads her mind, he's shaken by a disturbing vision. A gun, a waving toy cat, and Karen's corpse wrapped in fabric. He barely manages to conceal his reaction. Back at the prison, Abigail's attorney announces that she's being accused of murdering an innocent man. No one believes her claim that she acted in self-defense during an assault. Meanwhile, forensic experts reveal that the unearthed skeletons belong to 2 men and 1 woman. Each was executed with a gunshot to the back of the head. Stranger still, their skulls show unusual marks, as if something had exploded inside. As the team collects DNA samples, Chava finds a wedding ring among the remains. Later, Yoel shows up at the school's Family Day event. Noam's teacher expresses concern about the boy's emotional distance from the memory of his mother and suggests visiting her grave might help him heal. Meanwhile, Abigail's lawyer presents her with security footage from the nightclub where the alleged attack took place. In the video, she's seen smiling at the man she now accuses. It's going to be nearly impossible to convince a court of her version of events. Back at the forensics lab, the ring is cleaned and examined. Etched inside are the names Hila and Yoel, along with a set of numbers. A quick search leads Chava to a chilling conclusion. Hila was Yoel's late wife. That evening, Karen invites Nico for coffee, hoping to understand his odd behavior during the session. At the same time, Yoel receives a call from Chava, urgently summoning him to the police station. News of the skeletons reaches Abigail as well. In the interrogation room, Yoel tells the detectives he removed his wedding ring after his wife's death and never saw it again. He has no explanation for how it ended up on a corpse, or what the engraved numbers might mean. Elsewhere, Nico brings Karen to his apartment, where she's intrigued by his vast collection of vinyl records. Back at the station, Gabriel uncovers a crucial detail. After losing his wife, Yoel spent time in a psychiatric hospital. At home, Yoel searches desperately for his ring, but it's nowhere to be found. Instead, he decides to take Noam to visit his mother's grave. Meanwhile, the forensics team makes another discovery. One of the skeletons has a platinum implant with a serial number that could reveal the person's identity. Just as Yoel is about to leave the cemetery, he notices something strange about the plot numbers. The digits on the ring match the location of Hila's grave. Inspecting the headstone, he finds a hidden flash drive. Abigail, meanwhile, gets hold of a phone and makes a mysterious call, informing someone about the discovery. Nico and Karen grow closer, eventually sharing an intimate moment. At that exact time, Chava receives confirmation from the forensic lab. One of the bodies is identified as Abigail, who is still alive in custody. The second skeleton belongs to Nico, also very much alive. Back at home, Yoel plugs in the flash drive. On the screen, a video of himself appears. "I am Yoel," the man says. "I am not insane." Flashback. Hila's water breaks. The couple drives to the hospital, but their car suddenly spins out of control. Present day, Yoel visits an old acquaintance and confesses everything about the flash drive. At the same time, Abigail contacts a man named Adam to share the news about the skeletal remains. Yoel's old friend urges him to go to the police and manages to identify the location where the video was recorded, an abandoned movie theater where Yoel once worked. Meanwhile, Chava briefs her superiors on the increasingly bizarre results of the investigation and insists on detaining the living doubles of the confirmed dead. At that moment, Karen walks in on Nico holding her phone. He confesses that he saw horrifying visions of her death during the mentalist session. Before she can respond, Nico receives a call from the police, asking him to report immediately. Elsewhere in a hospital room, the estranged parents of a gravely ill girl meet at her bedside. The mother tries to convince the father to disconnect life support. He refuses, adamantly opposing the idea. Abigail is transported to the precinct. Yoel drives to the old theater, and memories of the car crash flood back. He recalls being unconscious while officers discovered his newborn son in the wreckage. Inside the abandoned screening room, Yoel loads a reel of an old film and watches. Meanwhile, Nico and Abigail are subjected to DNA tests, both protesting, both ignored. Yoel notices a man hiding in the theater. The stranger bolts, and Yoel gives chase into the street. Before he can catch him, a police officer intervenes, recognizes Yoel, and brings him in for questioning. Back at home, Noam heads outside to play. Suddenly, he spots a young woman smiling warmly at him. Noam is struck by a realization. It's his mother. Elsewhere, the girl's father, Alan, confesses to his assistant that he would do anything to bring Ella back. At the precinct, Gabriel tells Chava that the bullet used to kill the trio was from an experimental weapon, one still in early development. Later, Chava spots Yoel and orders a DNA sample to be taken from him as well. Alan returns to the hospital, where Naomi once again pleads with him to let their daughter go. Abigail remembers a conversation with her lawyer where she insisted she wasn't alone at the crime scene. At the hospital, Alan suddenly notices Ella's fingers twitch. At the same time, Karen meets Nico outside the station and offers to take him home. That evening, Yoel discovers his wedding ring in the bathroom cabinet. Chava receives shocking news. The third skeleton is an 80% DNA match to Yoel Russo. The next morning, a group of young people in black masks storm a building and take the elevator up. A boy and girl enter a room, declare their love for each other, and then pull the trigger, killing one another. Also that morning, Noam wakes his father. They've overslept and missed the class trip to the reserve. Yoel calls the teacher and promises to bring his son there himself. Meanwhile, Chava and Gabriel consult a biology professor. He tells them that such a close DNA match is possible only in the case of identical twins, and even then, extremely rare. However, he once encountered a similar case involving his former colleague, Yakov Suleimani. On the road to the reserve, Noam confesses that he's been thinking about a girl named Ella. He's worried because she's trapped in darkness, and he feels she's suffering. Flashback. Alan and his wife watch proudly as Ella performs with a symphony orchestra. Suddenly, she drops her violin and collapses on stage, gasping from the audience. Present day. Alan insists to his wife that he saw Ella's fingers and eyelids move, but the doctor's firm, all scans show no change. It's medically impossible. Yoel drops Noam off at the reserve to join his classmates. Soon after, Nico and Karen arrive and head toward the river. Meanwhile, Abigail's lawyer shares major news. DNA identical to hers was found elsewhere. This discovery undermines the prosecution's entire case against her. Back at the precinct, Gabriel receives files on the crash that killed Yoel's wife. Yoel had claimed they were hit by a vehicle that came out of nowhere, but no tire marks, no debris, no trace of another car was ever found. As Yoel arrives at the precinct, he crosses paths with Abigail, who has just been released under her lawyer's supervision. They lock eyes, two strangers with no trace of recognition between them. Yoel shows the detectives his wedding ring, nearly identical to the one the police recovered, except it bears no engraved numbers. With Chava absent, he hands over the mysterious flash drive to Gabriel. Just then, Gabriel receives a call. The bullet used in the triple murder does exist. Its creator confessed he sold the design to a dark-haired man with a mole on his cheek, a complete unknown. Meanwhile, Chava locates Yakov Suleimani. The scientist admits that 9 years ago, he was briefly suspected of murder when his fingerprints were found at the crime scene. Though later cleared, he wants nothing more to do with the past. Returning to her car, Chava notices she's being followed. She radios a colleague to run the plates while, back at the precinct, officers examine Yoel's video. He insists he never recorded it. Elsewhere, Nico encounters Noam. He freezes when he sees the boy, and Noam, too, pauses, turning to face the man. Karen, puzzled by the interaction, watches as Nico claims he knows this child, though he can't remember how. Karen leads Nico away, and they soon find themselves on a crumbling, abandoned bridge. Suddenly, Nico is struck by a vision. Karen's murder, her body thrown from this very spot. Meanwhile, Abigail returns to her lawyer's home. He confronts her about a note she left behind. Abigail finally admits she saw her doppelganger. He holds her close, promising he believes her. Elsewhere, Alan pleads with his assistant to find someone who can help him. At the same time, police begin investigating a double murder at an office building, but the bodies have mysteriously vanished. Gabriel informs Yoel that the audio from the flash drive has been enhanced. A voice can be heard saying that the person who knows the truth is Yoel's former university professor, Eric Boltzmann. In the meantime, security footage from the office murder scene is reviewed. The young man and woman who shot each other vanish mere minutes after falling, as if time itself is rewinding. The lawyer steps out for a meeting, leaving Abigail locked inside his apartment. She tricks the doorman into letting her out, walks into the street, bumps into a man, and steals his phone before disappearing. Nico, feeling the weight of something strange and unnatural, decides to leave. Chava is informed that the surveillance car belongs to a private company, but she can't understand why someone would be tailing her. Alan arrives at the port, where he is met by Adam. Back in the reserve, Noam, wandering alone, suddenly spots a woman by the river. It's Hila. She's startled to find a boy deep in the forest alone. Before she can speak further, a classmate calls out and Noam runs off. Chava returns to the station. At the same time, another woman, identical to her in face but with a different hairstyle and color, walks down the precinct corridor. She, the second Chava, is shown the footage of the office murder, while the original Chava apologizes to Yoel for being late. Flashback. Yoel and Hila are walking through the nature reserve. She steps aside into the brush and spots a young boy, Noam. She offers to help, thinking he's lost, but he runs away. Later, she tells Yoel about the boy and says she wants to name their son Noam. Yoel smiles, reminding her it's the name of a savior. Back in the present, Chava and Gabriel try to piece things together. The ring, the video, and Professor Boltzmann, who once visited Yoel in the psychiatric ward after the accident. They also reveal the latest discovery, a skeleton with Yoel's DNA. Meanwhile, in the port, Alan meets with Adam. Adam makes one final appeal for Alan to reconsider. When Alan agrees to anything to get his daughter back, Adam instructs him to transfer the money. But Alan, growing suspicious, begins inspecting the shipping containers himself and stumbles upon medical equipment. Elsewhere, Chava 2 takes a handful of pills and replays the disturbing footage from the office once again. The moment when two people shoot each other in cold blood. Sometime later, a Special Forces unit storms the house where the same masked individuals from the office shooting had taken refuge. Realizing they're moments away from being captured, Daniel bids farewell to his friends as they scatter, while he calmly surrenders to the approaching officers. That evening, Abigail returns home and has to apologize for running away. Meanwhile, Noam tells his father he saw his mother in the reserve. Yoel brushes it off as the boy's imagination and shows him old video recordings of Hila. Chava runs into her ex-boyfriend, a journalist, who presses her for details about the skeletons. She refuses to share anything. Later, Yoel digs up his old research papers, studies he once wrote on time and parallel universes. The following morning, Alan's partner confesses that it was Adam who made it possible for their company to acquire advanced technologies that no one else had access to. That's why he believes Adam truly can save Ella. At the same time, Nico opens up to Karen about his childhood fascination with reading people's thoughts. He used to study others, imagine what they were thinking, and tried to predict the next move of his abusive father. That's how his gift may have developed. That same day, Abigail meets with Adam and tells him the well has reopened, that the police have found the bodies and started an investigation. Adam, however, believes that this development might actually work in their favor. Meanwhile, Chava informs Yoel she's located Boltzmann and offers to visit the professor together. Adam hands Abigail an address and urges her to go there and demand what's rightfully hers. Elsewhere, Chava 2 interrogates Daniel, reminding him that storming the office was illegal. Experts have dismissed the gunfire footage as manipulated, but Daniel urges her to find Yoel Russo. He might be the only one who truly understands what happened. At that moment, Chava 1 and Yoel arrive at Professor Boltzmann's current residence, a psychiatric clinic. But before they can speak to him, Chava receives a call. The case is being shut down. Furious, she contacts her journalist X, gives him everything about the skeletons and the company Alan works for, and begs him to publish it all immediately. Meanwhile, Nico and Karen are relaxing after lunch. As he goes to make coffee, Nico finds a gun in the drawer. He's struck again by his violent vision of Karen's death. She calmly explains she used to be an officer and has a legal permit for the weapon. But then their attention shifts. A TV broadcast reports the discovery of skeletons, claiming one of them belongs to Nico. Back at the station, Chava 2 accesses Yoel's file as a police informant, only to find it's sealed so tightly, even she can't access it. Meanwhile, Professor Boltzmann speaks to Yoel. He says the tragedy of extraordinary people is that they often die before they can explain what they know. He references Yoel's old theory of time, like a woven braid, with countless life forms living and working side by side, unable to perceive humans because their consciousness operates on a different level. Reality, he says, isn't what most people believe it to be. Yoel notices a ripple in a glass of water. Boltzmann assures him that he will pass the coming trials with dignity and then walks away. Only then does Yoel realize he's wearing a patient's pajamas. He tries to leave, but orderlies seize him. Later, Yoel regains consciousness lying on a forest road and sees a horse. Suddenly, Shava's voice brings him back. He finds himself lying on the clinic floor. She's alarmed by his condition. Yoel finally admits he believes the car crash was his fault. Meanwhile, Shava too arrives at Hila Russo's house. Hila can't say where her missing husband has gone. She tried to find him but received threatening calls warning her to stay silent. She even hired a private investigator, who later discovered government involvement and promptly quit the case. In the first reality, masked men abduct Nico off the street. Elsewhere, a pair of students, having heard of the skeleton case, remember witnessing the murder and decide to go to the police. Back at Hila's home, she hands a detective a note she found in her husband's pocket with a mysterious number written on it. In a parallel timeline, Shava 2 listens to her superior report that the DNA tests were deemed inaccurate. Meanwhile, the journalist failed to uncover anything about Alan's company. She leaves just as 2 students arrive at the station. Elsewhere, Yoel pores over his old research, reliving the increasingly bizarre events of recent days. At the station, one of the students spots Gabriel and becomes visibly shaken. She tries to lead her friend away, but it's too late. Gabriel has seen them and calmly invites them into the interrogation room. That same day, Abigail and her lawyer return to the nightclub where she allegedly stabbed her attacker. She recalls that night, the man made unwanted advances, struck her, and began to strangle her. Suddenly, a second Abigail appeared, stabbed the man, and then called someone named Gabby. In the present, she tells her lawyer this memory, confessing she thought the other girl was her sister, though she's never known anything about her family. The lawyer then reveals that the skeleton carrying her DNA was found wearing a red jacket, the exact one Abigail wore the night of the murder. Realizing she's not believed, Abigail walks away. Back at the station, Gabriel begins questioning the students, but suddenly they claim they saw nothing. Suspicious, Gabriel orders them detained. Meanwhile, Karen arrives at the police station searching for Nico. No one has seen him because Nico, now missing, is in the hands of a masked group. They speak of him with awe, urging him to admit he's from the other side. Nico, terrified and confused, doesn't understand what they mean. Chava visits Yoel and sees his research carefully laid out. He explains that he once theorized about the existence of parallel multiverses and that if 2 timelines were to intersect, a temporal rupture would occur. If he's right, the skeletons might belong to exact copies of themselves, brought into their world by increasing seismic shifts. Someone, he believes, has found and opened a portal between realities. He tells her Noam saw Hila alive and that the past and present are merging. Shava insists the DNA analysis was flawed, and while she can't explain the wedding ring paradox, she refuses to believe in fantasy. She urges him to focus on his son. In the parallel world, Shava 2 discovers that Yoel had frequent contact with an inmate. Back in the primary universe, Abigail arrives at the address Adam gave her. Meanwhile, Nico's captors demand he confess. To prove a point, one slashes the other's leg, insisting Nico reverse time and heal the wound. Nico is horrified, and the group begins to realize they've made a mistake. They explain that they were hired by the other Daniel from another universe to find Nico. They finally understand this is the wrong one. Daniel tells Nico that his double was far more powerful. He even killed his girlfriend. The implication deeply disturbs Nico. Meanwhile, Yoel confronts the man who had been watching him at the theater. The man confesses he was hired by a woman to monitor the screening room and gives Yoel her number. At the same time, Abigail rings a doorbell and finds herself face-to-face with a woman, her mother. Yoel asks Chava to run the number and then heads to the precinct, just as Chava begins questioning the students again. One of the girls finally admits Gabriel was the one who killed the people in the reserve. Seeing him earlier had terrified them. Chava asks them to wait as she processes this revelation. In the parallel universe, the prison warden tells Chava 2 that Yoel had orchestrated the release of several prisoners, including Nico Zalid, the disgraced officer, Gabriel Ben David, and Abigail Lavi. Chava 2 visits Daniel, who explains the existence of Project Occam, something he learned about from a call with Dr. Irina Kaplan. She had wanted him to expose the government's secret initiative involving parallel universes, a project already underway, with operatives sent across realities. In the main timeline, Yoel receives the address Chava uncovered by tracing the phone number. He arrives to find a woman who greets him as if she's been expecting him. She leads him to the attic, where she's been hiding her own copy. At the same time, Chava questions Gabriel about his whereabouts during the murders. He claims he was with his wife. It was New Year's Eve. Yoel learns the woman in the attic is Irina Kaplan and that she's in danger. He decides to take her to the station for protection, but not before telling her about the 3 skeletons. Irina reveals that their team consisted of 5 people who had crossed over to retrieve sensitive information, but one of the police officers turned out to be unstable. He opened fire and killed 3 of them. Irina managed to escape. Meanwhile, in the parallel universe, Chava too arrives at the Neuroscience Center to meet with Dr. Kaplan, only to learn that she no longer works there. Unexpectedly, Dr. Emmanuel calls her over and invites her into her office. She explains that Irina vanished 6 months ago and no one knows what happened to her. As Chava 2 leaves, she bumps into Alan in the hallway, pushing his daughter in a wheelchair. Back in the main timeline, Chava 1 calls Gabriel's wife, who reminds her that on New Year's Eve, Gabriel was on assignment with her. Elsewhere, at Abigail's mother's apartment, the woman coldly admits she feels nothing for her. She had to give Abigail up. Her husband didn't want to raise someone else's child, especially after they had a daughter of their own. Abigail asks to use the bathroom and steals a scarf from the closet. Then the doorbell rings, and she hears her mother warmly greet her other daughter and grandson. As she leaves, Abigail hugs her mother goodbye, but the woman hurries to shut the door behind her. Meanwhile, Chava 1 confronts Gabriel again about his whereabouts on New Year's. He seems genuinely confused. Chava tells him witnesses saw him in the reserve. Nico, haunted by the idea that his parallel self murdered his girlfriend, walks into a police station and demands to be arrested. Gabriel insists he wasn't in the reserve, but Chava no longer believes him. The officers ask Nico to leave. He attacks them in distress. Cornered, Gabriel finally admits he was with another woman, but refuses to give her name. Chava orders his arrest. At that moment, Yoel arrives at the station with Irina and asks Chava to come meet them. Seeing Yoel, Nico suddenly recalls a shoreline, the place where 5 people from another world washed ashore, and abruptly leaves. Chava escorts Irina into her office. While in the parallel world, Chava 2 informs Daniel that Irina Kaplan has officially been declared missing. He asks for his laptop. That evening, Noam is having dinner with his aunt when he notices ripples in his glass of water. Then he hears voices from the other room. He approaches the door and sees a younger, pregnant Hila weeping as doctors explain that her unborn child has a fatal condition. She refuses to terminate the pregnancy, but Yoel urges her to reconsider, promising they can try again and have a healthy baby. Suddenly, Hila sees the boy. Back at the station, Irina confides in Chava. One night, tension erupted among the team. Yoel, from her universe, refused to follow an order. They were strictly forbidden to make contact with their counterparts, but Yoel broke protocol after seeing Noam. In their world, Noam had died in the crash, but Hila was still alive. Hearing this, Yoel rushes out of the room, overwhelmed. Chava, visibly shaken, tells Irina she doesn't believe her, then follows her into the hallway. In the parallel universe, Daniel tells Chava 2 that he and Irina had communicated via the darknet. He shows her a map Irina gave them, marking zones of low entropy, places where time runs in reverse. That's why people shot each other. They believed their deaths would be undone. One of those zones is at a hydrological research terminal, rumored to be a site of interdimensional crossings. The facility belongs to Alan Miller. Chava 2 recalls seeing him at the Institute when she met Dr. Emmanuel. Back in the main world, Nico struggles with the fear he may become like his murderous double. Abigail is rearrested for violating her house arrest. At the station, Gabriel sits in a holding cell, confused about the accusations. Meanwhile, Yoel gets a call from Noam. "Do you love me? You didn't want me to be born." Yoel assures him he's the most important person in his life. As the call ends, Gabriel is seen walking past Yoel, entering Irina's office, then quickly exiting. Yoel notices blood on the doorknob. Rushing in, he finds Irina dead. Gabriel snatches keys to a patrol car and vanishes. Chava finds Irina's body moments later and accuses Yoel. He insists Gabriel killed her. She drags him to the basement, where Gabriel is still locked up. Yoel realizes the killer was Gabriel's double. In the parallel world, Chava 2 is ordered to drop the Yoel Russo case. Realizing someone powerful is involved, she confronts Alan, demanding answers about his subsidiary. He threatens legal action, but when she mentions Emmanuel, he admits the doctor is treating his daughter. Chava leaves, planting a listening device under the table. Meanwhile, Chava 1 reviews surveillance footage confirming Gabriel entering Irina's office during the time of the murder. At Nico's place, Karen storms in, shaken by his unstable behavior. In the parallel world, Chava 2 listens as Alan calls Emmanuel, fearing the fallout of Irina's disappearance. Emmanuel reminds him he agreed to everything for Ella. Chava orders Daniel to trace Emmanuel's phone. Back in the main world, Chava 1 shows Gabriel 1 in the footage. Yoel explains the multiverse theory, and the police launch a manhunt for Gabriel's double. Abigail tells her lawyer she's found her mother at last and asks to be left alone. Noam's class goes on a field trip to the reserve. As the teacher lectures the group, Noam slips into the forest thinking of Hila. In the parallel world, Daniel tracks Emmanuel's location. In the main world, Nico confesses that, in his visions, it was Karen who shot him, not the other way around. Karen realizes Nico's afraid of her. In the lab, forensic analysts study Irina's skull. It shows the same microfractures as the skeletons from the reserve. They immediately notify Chava. Meanwhile, Noam, still looking for his mother, unknowingly walks onto a minefield. Nico confides in Karen that some boys believed his double killed his girlfriend, and that fear of becoming a monster haunts him. Karen suggests they visit the double's remains. In the reserve, the children realize Noam is missing, just as he finally sees Hila. In the parallel universe, Chava 2 tells Emmanuel to a secret meeting with an older man. She's trying to secure approval to open the portal, but he warns her of the danger. She threatens to expose Project Akam and accuses him of blood on his hands, specifically Suleimani's, the first to open the portal. Back in the main world, the children spot Noam on the minefield. The teacher tells them to stay on the trail and carefully approaches, calling for help. In the other world, Daniel tries to identify the man Emmanuel met, but records are sealed. Still, he uncovers names of those who first crossed into another universe. Noam runs toward Hila. The teacher chases after him and steps on a mine. She's thrown into the air, critically wounded. A rescuer rushes in and triggers another explosion. News of the blast spreads quickly. Chava is informed, and it hits the headlines. Nico and Karen break into the lab where the skeletons are stored. Elsewhere, Adam receives final authorization to complete his mission, with no room for error. He sees the news about Noam and is horrified. Even Abigail watches the breaking report from her cell. Yoel hears the news and speeds toward the reserve. In the parallel world, at a different moment, Yoel and Hila are racing toward the hospital. She's in labor. Two cars, one in each universe, drive full speed toward the same convergence point. Back on the minefield, Noam is sprinting toward Hila. Behind him, the teacher collapses, gravely wounded. A rescuer tries to help her and is fatally injured. Yoel hears the news of the explosion and speeds up. At a crossroads, his car crashes into another, driven by his double from the parallel world. Dazed, Yoel stumbles out of the wreckage and sees his unconscious double, and nearby, Hila, bleeding. He kneels beside her and delivers the baby, saving Noam's life. On the field, Noam turns back and sees the devastation. Torn between chasing Hila and helping the wounded, he chooses the fallen. Clenching his fists, closing his eyes, he concentrates, and time rewinds. The rescuer survives. The teacher reappears safely at the field's edge. Noam collapses, unconscious. Meanwhile, at the clinic, Alan's daughter, Ella, confides to Emmanuel that while unconscious, she repeatedly sees a boy named Noam, a boy who can turn back time. At the same moment, Nico and Karen examine the skeleton of Nico's double. Nico touches it and sees a vision. In another universe, Karen breaks up with him and, afraid of his anger, points a gun at him. As they struggle, she is accidentally killed. Elsewhere, Adam calls the prison to tell Abigail the portal is about to open. He urges her to find a way into the infirmary, the easiest place to escape from. There will be no second chance. Meanwhile, special forces locate Gabriel 2's stolen patrol car and seal off the area. Gabriel 1 realizes his double will be searching for insulin and orders pharmacies checked. Chava is notified of Yoel's car crash, but both he and his son are unharmed. She and Gabriel join the tactical team. In an alley, they corner the fugitive. Gabriel 1 aims and fires when the man refuses to comply. As he dies, the double whispers, "Noam!" At that moment, Noam is at his father's bedside. Yoel wakes up but remembers nothing about the accident. In the parallel universe, Chava 2 arrests Alan. Meanwhile, Abigail stabs herself in the abdomen. Chava 1 and Gabriel return to the station only to learn the double case has been reassigned. Nico touches the skull of his double and sees Yoel, tied up, beg him to remove a ring and hide it in his mouth. Then Gabriel 2 drives them into the reserve and executes them. Chava briefs her replacement, but he scoffs at her theory. She shows him the forensic reports and Gabriel's autopsy photos, but he dismisses it as a case of an unknown twin. In the other world, Chava 2 searches Alan's office. Alan confesses Ella suffers from a strange condition. Her mind is too powerful for her body. Only Emmanuel offered a plausible explanation and asked him to fund Project Akam, promising tech that could save his daughter. Alan agreed. Meanwhile, Gabriel tells Chava 1 what his double whispered. Noam, wandering the hospital, hears Ella calling to him. He pleads with Alan and his wife to let him see her. Later, he delivers Ella's message. She loves them but wants to be free. Nico calls Chava 1 and finally confesses the truth. Abigail was the killer. Meanwhile, Abigail escapes her restraints in the hospital. Reviewing footage of Abigail's interrogations, Chava recalls the persistent headaches and skull fractures and realizes Abigail must be from another world. In the parallel universe, Chava 2 visits Hila Russo and finds a photo of Noam, but not her Noam. Hila confesses Yoel brought him, and she would do anything to keep the child. Back in the main world, Chava 1 and Gabriel learn that Abigail is at the clinic. They race there, warning Yoel on the way that his son is in danger. Abigail, now free, is already searching for Noam. In the parallel world, Hila tells Shava too that she met Abigail in the hospital and grew close to her. Abigail became the backup plan in case Yoel refused to steal the child. Hila doesn't know why Emmanuel wants Noam, but she's willing to comply. Shava too tells them to come to the station, but just then, Hila gets a call from Emmanuel. The portal will open one last time. Pretending to obey, she injects Shava with a sedative and flees. Abigail finds Noam and promises to take him to his mother. Despite the search, she sneaks him out of the hospital. They reach the port where Adam awaits. The three board a boat heading to the terminal. Inside the cabin, they wait for the portal. When it activates, a powerful earthquake shakes both worlds. Nico and Karen drop to the ground. Alan and his wife embrace Ella. Yoel races through the hospital, frantic to find his son. Noam is brought to the dock, where his mother is waiting. Hila embraces him, overwhelmed, just as Emmanuel arrives. Back at the clinic, Shava 1 finds Yoel and promises him she will bring Noam back, no matter what it takes. For fans of the genre, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm hooked. Too bad the series was canceled and many mysteries remain unsolved.